Okay, Sean, over to you.
Okay, so hello once again. My name is Sean. Today I'll be introducing you guys to the course that we have planned for the rest of this year into next year. It is to prepare students to participate in the 2024 CCC Junior course. Of course, as Victor has mentioned, whether you actually take part in the competition is something you can still decide. We do recommend it, but the majority of the benefit will come from this learning process, which we are here to offer. Okay. A bit about myself. My name is Sean. I've been a coding instructor for some years. I graduated from U of T, Master of Computer Engineering, in 11 years ago. I have since been a full-time software engineer. I work on digital circuit CAD software. It's a pretty niche market, but I've been in the industry for the 11 years. On the side, I've been tutoring university, especially first-year university computer science courses and AP computer science courses for the past 11 years. And for the past 6 years, I've been coaching CCC in Python. And the Python is the one that I'm now almost entirely focused on. I used to also do some C++ for CCC. For those of you who are considering doing CCC, you probably know about AP Computer Science, and also Victor mentioned the MCU competition. Towards the end of what I'm about to talk, I will talk about my opinion on what the differences are, so that you guys can think about how to invest your time. Outside of doing computer stuff, I like to travel, especially taking photos and geotagging and uploading photos. This particular photo was taken in a place called Prince Edward County in Ontario. A very beautiful place, about 2-3 hours drive from Toronto. You guys should give it a try sometime this summer if you can. So the first set of topics we'll go through is what is CCC. Since the majority of you have not taken it, it's good that I will dive into some details. Also about why should people consider doing CCC, and if we want to do CCC, how do we train for it? So first question, what is CCC? Smaller font, but I'll go through them. So CCC stands for Canadian Computing Contest. It is run by the University of Waterloo. It is considered a competition. Sometime in February, the date might have been set for 2024 already, but one particular date, February 2024, there will be a 3-hour slot. Once it opens, anyone who's participating will receive 5 coding questions of increasing difficulty, 15 points each question. By coding question, we mean that it's unlike a math contest where you're given a specific question, but rather that you're given a question which you have to write a program to solve all possible variations of such a question. So it's a bit different than the other contests, and something that the course will, over time try to train these students on. So once you have your code for a given question, you submit it to an online grader. It will grade your question in less than a minute, and you are allowed to submit multiple times until you get your best score out of all your submissions. 15 points per question roughly maps to 15 test cases. So your code needs to pass from simple to complex 15 usually test cases. And the contest is a little bit different from normal coding in that speed is important. Speed both in the coding sense, 3 hours only. You only get to know the questions once it opens, and you have 3 hours to submit. So coding speed, but also the speed that the program runs at, which is something that, depending on your years in learning coding, you may or may not have focused on. For CCC, correct but slow solutions may not get you the full marks. The later test cases tend to be the ones where it stretches the performance of the code you've written. So, writing fast code, like writing code fast and writing fast code, those are things that the course we're offering will focus on. So junior versus senior. For those of you who know a little bit about CCC, you would know there are two variants of the contest, junior and senior. They happen at the exact same time, which means you can only do one of them. Junior and senior, they overlap in a number of questions, typically 2 to 3 questions. So the first 2 to 3 questions of senior is the same as, do I have a slide on that? Anyway, so yeah, so so they overlap in some questions, but junior is easier than senior. And the general recommendation is that you do junior first, then senior. So junior 1 year and senior next year. That's the general recommendation. Do know that preparing for junior is a big chunk of preparing for senior. So yeah, so I'm going to take you guys on a quick look on a CCC question, probably 2 CCC questions, just so you know what we're talking about. What are we getting ourselves into? So this is number 2 of some years, junior 2 of some years CCC. Note that the questions are of increasing difficulty. So this particular question talks about this was actually, I believe, given in the year 2020, junior 2. We use this kind of a short form to reference it. And basically, this question was talking about, given a very simple disease spread model, after a number of days, how many people would have been infected? The person who wrote the question wrote here, claiming that this was written before COVID became a thing, but in hindsight, it was the perfect question for that year. So the program that the participant is to write will take some numbers as input and gives an output, which is the number of the first day on which the total number of people who have had the disease is greater than P. So knowing that this is a simplified model for how disease spread, you can say, okay, on which day does the number of infected reach a certain number? And so they give some examples here to guide the participant in writing their program, and they give a description, usually a story and a description and information about what the student needs to, what the solution needs to take as input and output. So this is 2022's Junior 5, 5 being the most difficult question in the junior pool. This would have been about a senior 2 to 3 level for that year. This one is a bit different. There's a marking scheme here in the middle. And this marking scheme basically means that of the 15 marks, certain marks are allocated for relatively easy test cases, and which would have been 8 marks. And the 7 marks here will be allocated to relatively difficult test cases, where the performance of the program becomes critical. So this particular question was considered one of the cleverest questions that the CCC ever given. Its solution, and for the course we are about to offer, I will go through all the different solutions that people have thought of, and the rationale behind each one of them, and ultimately show you the ones that do actually meet all the performance requirements. So this question will in the course we'll revisit a few times, because it's such a treasure trove of learning about how to write fast programs. Okay, so a bit of more story about myself. I graduated in 2012 from my master's degree. I graduated high school in 2006. I did CCC Junior in 2005, Senior in 2006. So the world was a little bit different. I think Victor also alluded to that. So back then, written submissions were still allowed, which is no longer the case. Now you have to have a live internet connection to do it. And coding was like a very fringe thing, for the lack of a better term, where and it was actually operated out of the business department. Now computing could have its own department in high schools, so the world's different. And I did CCC, and the process of preparing for it really helped me a lot. It challenged me to work hard because honestly, these CCC questions, they're a lot harder than the questions that the school would give you. Like even, let's say even your school had a computer program, these are very different, very, very hard. And but this difficulty also made it fun because like you learn something hard and meaningful. So it exposed me to like the fun side of coding, which is something the course that was at my school kind of lacked. Also, I'm now doing computer programming as a career, so I guess it set me on the path that I am on today. So sorry. And one more slide specifically on junior versus senior. So I alluded to that, but it's the same format, partially overlapping questions. J5 and S2 are often the same questions, sometimes S3, but usually S2. And S3 and beyond are all about program run speed. So so for the senior course, which we also have on offering, this is the S3 and beyond is what we focus on. And S4 and S5, being the hardest on the senior side, require clever solutions. Solutions that's like, I can teach you all about programming, but there's some cleverness that's required to actually solve those problems. But as a basis, you need understanding of data structures and algorithms. So the way I like to put it is that training for junior is part of the training for senior due to both how similar the questions are structured and also the fact that some questions do actually overlap. So the other thing, which I've done most of my pre-university to like most of my tutoring for high school students focused on CCC and AP Computer Science. AP Computer Science is very popular, but I just want to say it's very different because AP Computer Science is very traditional. It's paper online, doesn't matter. It's the answers are scored by visual inspection, not execution. So you answer a exam and your answer is marked as text, whereas for CCC, your program has to run. And the markers look for demonstration of key points of understanding in AP, much like how people would mark an English exam. And the AP exam is fine-tuned in difficulty. So basically, before giving it out every year, they kind of know that the mark distribution should fit a certain curve. And it's about applying course learnings, right? It's very different from CCC. In that CCC is a competition. The questions are not fine-tuned. Every year, the average actually can swing pretty widely. It's all about how you do relative to the cohort. And it's a very different experience, but both are very popular. And I do actually do both for high school students. Also, there's the MCU, I believe that's what it's called. That one is the hacking competition. That one is intense. You solve a big problem, and CCC is more about solving 5 isolated problems where you come up with increasingly more clever solutions where performance is the key. But both are, somewhat like a competition. But CC is shorter; it's only 3 hours. You spend a long time doing it, but the actual competition is not as long. Okay. Yep. So I also do U of T computer science courses. So based on what I know, CCC is a good practice for first year U of T courses. In fact, the first year CSC 108, which is the introductory to programming, is it doesn't really expect any coding background, but as the assignments for that course are rolled out, they would feel like the CCC Junior courses in terms questions in terms of difficulty. So doing CCC Junior, like if you do well, or if you learned well, you'll be the ace the first coding course in university. The second one, this is the code is a little bit weird at U of T, but this is the one that follows up this one. This one, second programming course, it's continuation of this one, but for those who take it, you realize it's a big jump in difficulty. So, and if you've done CCC and you take this course, you realize it pretty much matches question 1 to 4 in difficulty on the assignments and probably on the exam. But I have mistaken, it should be S5. But maybe CCC has more cleverness to it than the university course, which is more about hoping to build a solid foundation in you. But difficulty-wise, be similar. S5 is its own wild beast, which the senior course will cover. Okay, so next question. How do we register for CCC? That's very interesting, right? So usually high schools register its students. So if you're in a computer science class in your high school, or even if you're not, talk to the computer science teacher, math teacher, maybe business teacher. If your school does not participate in CCC, so let's say if you're not a I know all high schools in Ontario definitely do this, but let's say your high school, if it's in Canada or elsewhere, does not, talk to Victor. He can help. So next, why do we do the CCC? Well, I give 5 reasons, okay? So they come from, the first, really is about challenging yourself. Like, I think this is the most important reason, but you do it for yourself. But also it's about putting your learning to practice, which, believe me, feels good. You learn something and you see it like being useful. It feels good. Also, the process of training for CCC is important to build good coding habits. For those who want to pursue a computer science degree, a good score on CCC would also help. And finally, if you do really, really well, there's the Computing Olympiad, which the top finishers of CCC senior qualify for. So next question is, how will we train for CCC? So the course we are to offer will take a structured approach to CCC questions. This means for every question, we'll analyze it in a structured way and write the solution in a structured way, which I'm about to mention. We will do deep dive of past CCC questions. There's now 2.5 decades, almost 3 decades of questions, which we will one by one analyze and dissect. We use these as starting points of learning about the required algorithms and data structures, but we do it in a practice-centric way. So I will give lectures on programming concepts as they're encountered in the questions, but I also review the concepts over a few different iterations. We provide the guided practice schedule of the past questions. This is mainly to ramp up difficulty, but also to group similar questions together. And we'll do it as a homework plus in-class take-up style. Also, with Google Classroom, I'll be providing individual coaching as well. So our approach in terms of thinking about this is we have a general form of solution. This works well for the junior questions for sure, but it's good to build a habit for the senior questions as well. And we will specifically talk in junior talk about how to handle the input-output requirements, how to choose data structures, and how to apply the algorithm. And for every question, we'll be approaching it this way. The general form of the solution is nothing magical. It's about parsing input, choosing data structure, apply algorithm, and print output. So this when you look at the question, you may think this is an overkill, especially for the earlier questions, okay? But it is a good habit to be familiar with the structure, and it becomes essential for harder questions, J4 and beyond. Like as we learn, we'll also figure out when to deviate from this question, from this form. Also, I want to mention that what this allows people to do is allows people to get started in answering a question, which for people who, this is our first computing competition, you're nervous and you're not feeling so secure. Like, it's very important they have a form and a structure to follow as you're approaching it. In senior, we do deviate a little bit from this and we think of it a little bit differently. But yes, for junior and as building a good habit, this is what we try to achieve. So handling input and output, right? So as we saw the question earlier, right? So your program can do things, but ultimately it's how you read the input and how you print the output that is being marked. And when we write programs for ourselves, or even as class assignments, it's less important that we get the input and output perfect. But for CCC, it's a requirement because a program marks the solutions. I'm actually going to skip this section, and so in terms of choosing data structures, for those of you who are familiar with CCC with Python, it's always Python has built-in data structures, but often the question is, which one do you choose? And the idea is that by making the right choices, you have an easier time coding your solution. And data structure choices is one of the first things you have to do, because as you parse the input, you have to choose them. And the important thing is when we talk about faster coding and coding faster, the data structure choice will play into both of them. And also, this is in general very useful. Like, you're not just learning this for CCC, you're learning this. Data structure is the central pillar of computer science. Like, there's one central pillar, and it's data structures. So data structure is very important. So we're not doing this just for CCC. This is in general very useful information. And we'll cover the for CCC Junior, we'll be covering the built-in data structures as well as tree and graph. And the idea with the data structure is that when we code, we talk about what's called an abstraction. So the question gives you a scenario and a problem. The code we write has to be able to extract, from that description, what is the essence of the problem and how do you solve it. So data structures, in a way, is what we think about abstraction of the problem. And also there's nesting of data structures, which is probably the hard part for CCC Junior. Applying algorithm. Algorithm, for those of you who have studied some level of programming, there are loop-based algorithms, recursion-based algorithms, which you may or may not be familiar with. But this, in preparing for CCC, we'll also talk about tree traversal and graph search, and a few other things which fall into the clever solution territory. So algorithms are patterns, and these algorithms have been solved by people before us over centuries. And even before computers, how you compute something like this, the art of computing is in itself a discipline. So algorithm just is a pattern on how you solve problems. These are cumulative knowledge from centuries, and we will be covering some of them. There's quite a few of them, but we'll be covering the ones that are relevant to CCC. And for simple questions, the algorithm will be the central piece. But again, we have the general form of the solution so that we can, do the input, do the output, do data structure, so that algorithm in the question of what algorithm to use does not itself become overwhelming. And the question, we will structure the course such that we see relevant questions, so questions with similar algorithm together. And we'll also do lots of reviews. So again, why do we teach a structured solution? It's a overkill for simple questions, essential for harder questions. So you start practicing with the simple questions, and they become second nature when you try to do them on the harder questions. Breaks down bigger problems into smaller pieces. That's the point. So they allows one to start answering the question. And when we write programs, they tend to not work the first time we do it. This is because programming logic and human logic, there is a huge gap in how you think in terms of code and how a human person would normally think. So a structured approach actually helps in debugging. Debugging is the process of then finding out what you did not do well in the program. And I mentioned earlier that there are multiple solutions to the same question. There are wildly different solutions to the same question. And we'll present different solutions to the same question, and then we'll highlight how the solutions are different. Why do they all work for this question? And why would they not work if this question was slightly different? This is very important because every year's problems will be different. We don't know what next year's problem will be. We have some guesses, but we don't really know. So how do we learn from past questions to better enable us? Well, we see patterns, right? So for a given question, all solutions will work, but for slightly different questions, some will work, others won't. But why? Right? So these are kind of questions. And once you kind of internalize, you realize that for different problem next year, you may figure it out. Once again, CCC is a competition. It's about solving problems under constraints, right? Time, performance, score. But a competition is something we can train for. And everyone will get good with practice. And that's the point of the course we're offering. And as a final point, there's some more points, but as a very important point, I must say that training for CCC is fun. And it's kind of like you feel good after you've done something difficult. Training for CCC, the approach we're taking, once again, is we're going to build experience and familiarity. So deep analysis of questions and guided practice through homework. And we'll be very feedback-centric. So individual coaching on some of the homework solutions. And we'll use all the features of Google Classroom. And then we'll also provide weekly Q&A. And the course will focus on techniques, such as how to understand the CCC questions, how to come up with a structured solution, and will also encourage students to form study groups and study buddies. The fun in CCC comes in that CCC questions are almost always very close to real-world problems. In fact, each question tries to tell you a story. And we will also supplement real-world context as we are preparing for these questions. And also, we're going to use VS Code and Python. Both are very popular tools, and their popularity is expected to remain for many years to come. So VS Code and Python, and it's a good combination. That's all I can say. And finally, just figuring out the problem. It feels good. And one more point about Python that I think some of you may ask, because I saw some of you in your answers to say that you don't really know what Python is. Hopefully you've learned another programming language. The choice of Python is, first of all, popularity. It is, I think at this point, I think people would agree it's the most popular language by far. And also Python is very suitable, is very suited for CCC questions because it abstracts away some of the less relevant parts of coding and really allows you to focus on the question. And the performance of Python has been getting pretty good. So the advantages other programs has waned over the years. Okay, so next there are a few more things. So The overall plan for this year is that the first half of the course, so between now and February next year, the first half roughly will be more coding concept driven. So we'll try to distill coding concepts from the questions we do. The second half will focus more on testing and performance optimization. J1 and J2, so the first two questions of junior, will be covered in the first two classes and through homeworks. J3 and J5 will be the focus for the remainder of the course. For the very first class, we'll spend a significant amount of time trying to learn how to understand CCC, the structure of the contest, the CCC questions, and the coding and the structure of the solutions. And we'll do junior 1 to 3. For most classes, will be homework. We'll be doing homework questions. We'll be covering coding concepts, and we'll do also some questions that's not homework, but in class. Some feedbacks we got from 2022 are give everyone ramp up on Python as a programming language. Teach each algorithm abstract before diving into questions. This is something that there's a balance between this, but we can try more of that this year. Use more visuals. I'll try. Enforce homework submissions more strictly. Yes, I can do that. And there's the request to share everyone's homework anonymously, just me commenting on people's solutions. This is something we'll gather feedback on. But if people collectively agree to do it, what we're hoping to do is we'll be anonymous, but we'll lay out people's solution homework, give detailed feedbacks to each person's solution. It's something that people have suggested, and I'll gather feedback from you guys to see if it's something we should try. And that actually concludes the structure part of my talk today. Hopefully I've done the course that Victor and I have planned justice. Any questions? Okay, so Victor, okay, so I see you guys have asked some questions. Let's give Victor 1 minute to see if, let me see. Okay, so I do I do have some questions on my end. Hopefully, Victor can supply me with questions that he received. So the first question I got is, when getting to CCC Junior with Python, how would someone recommend students with Python background transition to C++, which is recommended required over Python as CCC Senior? That is not true. The recommendation for, let me answer this more completely. There has been questions in which a C++ solution would have done better. A Senior 5 question, there has been a handful in the past. Over the years, though, they've done a good job in making all the programming languages about the same for all the senior questions. So the recommendation for C++ for CC Senior, I will not be making that recommendation. So and I do have the senior course running already this year. So the idea is that we are going Python all the way for CCC, and performance-wise it'll be fine. Coding-wise, it's always faster to write in Python. So the advantage of C++ is questionable at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree, Sean. I also got lots of similar questions from parents. Can I just add a couple of more comments here?
Okay, please do. Thank you.
Yeah. So the short answer is Python will not impact you to score high in senior. Okay, so someone wants to score like a high score in senior, which some question require the program running time. You will be able to achieve that with Python. As Sean mentioned, when you try to solve the problem with Python, you kind of focus on the problem solving without kind of worry about some technical details. So that help your thought process. So that's the on that end. The other thing is Python is very widely used, especially in artificial intelligence area, in data mining area. Those are very, very interesting. So if you're using Python, yeah, not just for the competition, but yeah, it's widely used.
Yeah, mastering Python will serve you well outside of CCC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. I want to take CCC Junior next year, then Senior. Can I use Python for Senior in the future? Yes, well, yes. So we covered that question.
Yeah.
Okay, same question repeated. Okay, for someone who has very minimal little programming experience, what kind of courses are needed to be taken before getting to CCC Junior level? Well, first of all, the courses that Victor has on offer. Victor, if you can introduce, maybe take a chance to introduce them again.
Sure, yeah, I can take that one. I actually got another similar questions. So the question is like to get CCC Junior competition, that students needs to go through Python level 1, 2, 3, 4, and how long does each level take in order to get CCC Junior? Okay, if someone's starting now. Okay, similar question.
Yep.
Yeah, CCC Junior, it's competition. It does require you have pretty solid understanding of Python programming. So in general, in the past several years, most of the students, if not all, kind of go through Python level 1, level 2, level 3 as minimum. And then level 4 is AI focused course. So yeah, if the students say, I want to kind of focus on competition rather than AI use case, right? But you do need to have some solid Python programming experience before you get into the competition. So yeah, each level is 20 hours. So it's roughly kind of 9 to 12 months before like to finish all the previous levels before you get ready to the CCC competition.
So 9 to 12 months for levels 1 to 3.
1,
Again.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, if you basically it's a 3 months per level.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I do encourage some students has a very special case like, hey, I'm already in grade 11. I want to take a CCC and I want to use CCC for university application. So yeah, if you have a very specific case, talk to us. Let's try to find like fit your schedule. But if not in a rush, I strongly recommend you start like step by step, right? So that's why like we crawl, we walk, we run, right? So yeah.
Yep. So I got another question. This one's from you, Victor. What's a test case? I should probably be more clear on that one. So in the marking of CCC questions, the people who've written the questions also came up with the test cases. What are they? They are sets of input to your program with known outputs, and that's what the marker will feed to your program to test its correctness for. But these test cases are curated in that they are meant to test simple as well as complex uses of the program that you wrote. So for one of the questions I briefly flashed in an earlier slide, I talked about the maximized size of pool you can have if you have a backyard with some trees in it. What's the largest swimming pool you can build there? And simple questions will have a very simple backyard setup, and simple test cases have a very simple backyard setup, and the last few test cases will be very tricky scenarios where the person who wrote the question expects students' solutions, if not careful, to not be able to solve those scenarios. And also, they will stress the performance of the code. So yeah. Victor, have you got more questions?
Yeah, another question sent to your way.
Does CCC Junior require specific math knowledge? Like what grade? Okay, this is a very good question. It is known that CCC Senior requires up to grade 11 math. And in my current offering of the senior course, we are, we talk about, and we joke about what the math it requires. But junior is known to not be particularly demanding on math knowledge, but grade 9 math would be good to know. It's just like general concept. There's no particular math concept that's required in junior, but some math will not hurt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I got another question. Send over to you.
I know Python coding, but I haven't learned any data structure and algorithm. Yes. First of all, you may know more data structure and algorithm than you think, because any meaningful program you write would have some data structure, some algorithm. So you must know some. Okay, you may not know what they are called, and that's the point of this course. In this course, we will see a question, and we will talk about the data structures and algorithms required. The question is used as a gateway, but when we see anytime we encounter something, we'll dive deep into it. Meaning the first time, for example, the first time we see a question that will require the use of sets. Oh, by the way, set is probably the only math concept that you must know for CCC Junior. So yeah, so that's about the only math concept you have to know. So the first time we encounter sets, I will do a deep dive into, okay, what is this data structure? What is it meant to do? And why do we use it for questions like this one? So the question should, so with reasonable coding skill, the data structure and algorithm pieces will be covered very deeply in this course. In fact, it'll be the focus of the course. So you should be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is another question coming.
When taking the data structure, do you also teach time complexity? I would not be teaching time complexity in the mathematical sense. That is reserved for university, computing theory courses. We'll be talking about time complexity in the practical sense, meaning why do some data structure operations take longer than others? So we'll rank different data structures in terms of their similar operations and why do some take longer than others. We'll use a big O notation as a like O of 1, O of whatever. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. We'll use some theoretical terms just like to name those concepts, but it will be a practical approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Yep.
Any further questions? We kind of towards approaching to the end of the seminar. Any last minute questions, comments? Those are very good questions, by the way. Any further questions, comments?
Oh, that's
Okay, if not, probably we can conclude this session. Thank you, Sean, very much.
Thank you
So that's
for
a
having me.
very detailed introduction about CCC Junior exam, what it is, how score measured, and what's your teaching approach.
Yep.
So yeah, in the past several years, especially 2 years, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the seminar, we have a students, many of our students achieve a great score in the CCC junior competition. We have a students list the top 5 globally, and many of our students got distinct certification. So that means top 25. So very good results. And also, I think John also mentioned the CCC, it's a fun process. You find like people with similar minds, like all together learning. And yeah, you don't feel like alone. Sometimes I'm not trying to sugarcoating the process. It's competition. It's mean to a little challenge, but it's achievable. It's totally achievable with coaching, work with peers. So it is a very fun, interesting process. And at the end, once you kind of go through these hurdles, you will feel you becoming stronger in different way, like in programming, obviously, but also in general problem solving skills. Yeah, so with that, I have to thank everyone that joining this session, and hope to see you all in our CCC Junior courses. And yeah, have a good evening.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks everyone. Bye.
Take care.